budget.
Iowa's Attorney General is leading a coalition of 24 states asking the Supreme Court to strike down a Massachusetts pork law. In 2016, Massachusetts voters approved a law targeting animal cruelty. The law sets standard cage and enclosure sizes for hogs. It also banned farmers from other states who don't follow those rules from selling and transporting their products in Massachusetts. AG Brenna Bird calls the ban unconstitutional and a threat to Iowa pork producers. Iowa is the top hog producer in the country. Nebraska's Attorney General also signed off onto the brief. A Nebraska hospital has a new